Diddy's next big performance? Not a music video, a courtroom redemption pitch. He's telling the judge he wants to turn his prison time into a platform against domestic violence. Counseling, advocacy, rehabilitation, all part of the act. But is this the comeback arc of the decade, or just the slickest damage control strategy money can buy? It's August 2025. The verdict's in. Guilty on 2 Mann Act counts, acquitted on the bigger conspiracy charges. Sentencing? October 3rd. But here's the twist. Instead of just begging for a lighter sentence, Diddy's team is pitching the court a redemption plan, formal counseling for domestic violence awareness, speaking engagements on abuse prevention, using his influence to help others avoid his mistakes. It's a bold move, but also one with serious legal undertones. So let's break this down: the optics, the law, and whether this play could actually shave time off his sentence. Diddy's legal team isn't walking into court with the classic "he's been punished enough, Your Honor" plea. They're rolling out what sounds like a full-blown rebrand campaign, just in a sentencing memo instead of a press release. The proposal: complete a certified domestic violence intervention program, do public speaking on abuse prevention, targeting schools, youth groups, and community events, put his name and platform behind national awareness campaigns. In legal speak, this falls under mitigation, the softeners judges are allowed to consider when deciding a sentence. The playbook comes from 18 U.S.C. Section 3553A, which lets a judge weigh things like rehabilitation and character alongside punishment. In plain English, show me you're fixing the problem, and maybe I'll fix your sentence. And the goal here is obvious. If Judge Arun Subramanian buys it, he could go under the 51 to 63-month prison range prosecutors are pushing. But here's the catch. Judges see a lot of these 11th hour redemption pitches. The ones that land are usually backed by real receipts, counseling already completed, partnerships already signed, dates already booked. Without that, it risks looking like a Hail Mary for the headlines. We've seen this before. Chris Brown's court-ordered counseling and public service appearances after his 2009 assault case helped him fulfill probation terms without extra jail time. R. Kelly tried a similar redemption pitch before his sentencing. It fell flat, and he got 30 years. In high-profile cases, the difference usually comes down to timing and credibility. Plus, Subramanian isn't exactly an easy sell. He's denied Diddy bail 5 times, calling him both a flight risk and a danger to the community. If he didn't trust Diddy outside jail, will he trust him to turn prison into a PR-proof advocacy tour? Next, we'll get into why redemption plans like this can work in theory, but why prosecutors usually sharpen their knives the moment they see one. Under federal sentencing guidelines, Diddy's looking at 51 to 63 months for the 2 Mann Act convictions. That's the prosecution's range based on offense levels, enhancements, and no credit for accepting responsibility. The redemption plan isn't just about optics. It's a strategic tool. Judges can vary downward from the guidelines if they believe a defendant poses less danger going forward, or if rehabilitation is already underway. That's where programs like domestic violence counseling, substance abuse treatment, or community outreach can come into play. But here's the thing. The best mitigation evidence is tangible. Judges want to see completion certificates, letters from program directors, signed agreements with advocacy groups, not just promises. Without that, a plan can feel like courtroom theater. Prosecutors know this, and they tend to go on the offensive. They'll argue that post-verdict behavior should carry less weight than the underlying crimes, and that PR-style redemption pitches can distract from the seriousness of the offense. In some cases, they even present prior statements or behavior to undermine claims of genuine change. And while the law under 18 U.S.C. Section 3553A gives the judge broad discretion to weigh rehabilitation, it also tells them to consider deterrence and public protection. Translation: a judge might think, even if you started to change, the sentence still needs to send a message. That's why this isn't a slam dunk. Diddy's plan has to land as real, enforceable, and in line with the seriousness of his convictions. If any part feels like spin, the prosecution will be ready to call it out, and probably in public. Which is why this isn't just a legal move. It's also a PR gamble. Let's look at how the optics could help, or blow up entirely. If this pitch works, Diddy gets more than a sentencing break. He gets a shot at reshaping his public image before he even walks out of prison. But here's the flip side. If the judge calls it out as performative, the narrative becomes, he tried to spin his way out, and it didn't work. That sticks in headlines just as long as any sentence would. And remember, this isn't just about one courtroom. Diddy still has civil defamation suits and other legal disputes in the pipeline. Looking rehabilitated could make him seem more sympathetic to future juries. Looking manipulative? That could poison the well in every other case. Then there's the wild card: victim impact statements at sentencing. Under federal law, victims can speak directly to the judge before the sentence is imposed. If those statements frame his plan as hollow or opportunistic, it could undercut months of defense work in a matter of minutes. This is why high-profile redemption plays are double-edged swords. They can humanize a defendant, but they also hand the opposition a stage to tear the whole thing apart in real time. And with the same judge who's denied him bail 5 times in charge, the defense has to know they're walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and this could go from comeback story to courtroom flop in seconds. Next, let's break down how judges decide whether to buy into a redemption plan and why the answer is often no. When a redemption plan lands on a federal judge's desk, the decision usually comes down to 3 questions. First, is it genuine? Has the defendant shown consistent effort toward change? Or is this a brand new idea born after the guilty verdict? Judges are used to last-minute transformations that seem tailor-made for sentencing day. Second, is it measurable? Are there signed agreements with advocacy groups, enrollment confirmations for counseling programs, or documented work already in progress? Vague promises don't carry much weight. Courts want specifics they can hold a defendant to. Third, is it enforceable? Can it actually be done while serving time? Federal prisons aren't known for letting inmates run outreach campaigns or travel for speaking engagements. Without a plan that works inside custody or immediately upon supervised release, the proposal risks being dismissed as unrealistic. Judge Arun Subramanian's track record in this very case is worth noting. He's been openly skeptical, rejecting 5 separate bail requests despite strict proposed conditions and a massive bond. That kind of history suggests he'll be just as critical when weighing a proposal that depends heavily on trusting Diddy's personal follow-through. And there's a bigger pattern here. In other high-profile cases, judges have been burned by redemption promises that faded once the cameras were gone. The lesson? They've become cautious and sometimes cynical about these offers. That's why the October sentencing isn't just the end of this case. It's a high-stakes test of whether the court believes Diddy's transformation is for real. October 3rd is more than a date on the calendar. It's the moment this whole gamble pays off or falls flat. If the judge buys the plan, we could see a sentence of time served plus supervised release, with strict conditions like mandatory counseling and verifiable advocacy work. That would let Diddy leave court branded as a man who paid his debt and is now working to prevent others from making the same mistakes. More likely, if the pitch only half lands, he might still get a reduced prison term, something shorter than the 51 to 63 months prosecutors want, but still spend years behind bars before starting any public advocacy. And here's something most people don't realize. Under the First Step Act, federal inmates can shave time off their sentence with earned time credits for good behavior and program participation. But it's not a free pass. Certain offenses, especially those with elements of violence or coercion, often don't qualify. That means even if Diddy plays the model inmate, he might not see much of a time cut. And if the judge rejects it outright, expect the full guideline range, maybe even an upward variance if the court thinks the plan was more spin than sincerity. That could lock in the harsher narrative, not just in the media, but in every other courtroom where Diddy's name comes up. The ripple effect is huge. A lighter sentence and a redemption headline could soften the ground for his other legal battles. A heavy sentence could harden public and legal perception against him, making every future case an uphill climb. One way or another, October's decision will set the tone for the rest of his career, whether he's working a microphone or working within prison walls. And if you think October will be the end of Diddy's legal saga, think again. A tough sentence could ignite appeals, spark new civil claims, and even pull fresh witnesses into the spotlight. October might be the climax, but it's far from the credits. So, is this Diddy's genuine turn toward redemption, or the slickest piece of damage control a sentencing memo's ever seen? In a few weeks, we'll find out if the judge hears a changed man, or just a man changing the subject. What's your verdict? Drop it in the comments. Is this a comeback in the making, or a PR stunt in legal drag? And hit subscribe. Because when October 3rd hits, we'll be right here breaking down the moment the gavel drops, and whether Diddy's future starts in a studio or a cell block.